Are you good to get started?
Yes, we are.
Thank you, Paul. I call this meeting of the City Planning Commission to order at 1:32 p.m. I'll start with a roll call. Commissioner Alexander.
Present.
Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Flick, present. Commissioner Lunn.
Present.
Commissioner Mobley.
Present.
Commissioner Stieg.
Present.
Commissioner Stewart. Commissioner Weidberg.
Present.
Commissioner Wittry.
Present.
Great. Now we'll do the approval of the meeting minutes from the October 26th meeting. Is there a motion for approval of minutes?
I move, Stieg moves approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Stieg. Thank you, Commissioner Wittry. Commissioner Stieg made a motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 26th, seconded by Commissioner Wittry. I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown, she's on it. Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley?
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg?
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wittry?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Now we'll read the rules, the special hearing public rules. The order of business at the hearing shall be as follows: call to order and roll call with recording of members present, approval of minutes, reading of the hearing rules, presentation of dockets, staff presentation, applicant presentation, and questions from members. Then there'll be a recess for 30 minutes. Then the consideration of dockets consisting of public comment, rebuttal by the applicant, questions from members, and voting, and then adjournment. The presentation of dockets. The order of business for each docket shall be as follows: presentation by the City Planning Commission staff, presentation by the applicant or their representative. The applicant or applicant may appear on their behalf or be represented by a duly authorized agent. Only one representative may speak on behalf of a request and must pre-register with the staff of the City Planning Commission. Other representatives or speakers may sign up to provide comments during the public comment portion of the meeting. The applicant shall be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Questions from members. The members have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff or applicant. The commission shall take a 30-minute recess to allow members of the public to comment. The public comment, the rules only written public comment will be allowed. Live public comment will not be allowed. No members of the public may submit more than one written comment per agenda item. The public comment form will be made available at the start of the meeting and will close at the end of the 30-minute recess. Public comments must be submitted electronically on the form provided by the City Planning Commission. Any comment missing this information will not be read aloud. Each submission must contain the commenter's first and last name, the commenter's address, whether commenter is being paid in connection with his or her comments, and the agenda item. A moderator will read into the record all comments pertaining to that item that have been submitted in accordance with these rules. Comments will be read aloud in normal speaking voice. The moderator will discontinue reading a comment once it exceeds 2 minutes. Following the public comment period, if there's opposition, the authorized representative of the application is allowed a rebuttal not to exceed 2 minutes. Following the public comment and rebuttal, the members have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff or the applicant. Voting. Making a motion, the member making a motion shall clearly state their name when making a motion. For example, I, Commissioner Flick, move to approve, deny the request. Seconding the motion, the member seconding the motion shall clearly state their name when seconding the motion. For example, I, Commissioner Flick, second the motion made by Commissioner Flick. The chair will restate the motion, confirming who made and seconded the motion. The chair will request a verbal vote from each member by roll call. Each member will indicate yay to vote in support of the motion or nay to vote in opposition. And now for the presentation of dockets. First up is docket 7821. 7321.
Subdivision docket 7321 is a request to re-subdivide one existing lot at lot F1A into 4 lots, lots F1A1, F1A2, F1A3, and F1A4. The existing lot is currently vacant and parallel to Dwyer Canal in New Orleans East. The applicant is proposing the subdivision of the lot in order to construct new residential structures. This request was heard at the September 14th and October 26th City Planning Commission meetings, where it was recommended for deferral to allow time to review alternative solutions and to research an outstanding ownership issue. Since the October 26th CPC meeting, the City Planning Commission staff met with the Department of Public Works and the Department of Real Estate and Records to understand the city's improvements along the Sewage and Water Board servitude shown as Mark Drive on the survey. It was determined the applicant should still be permitted to create a private or a public right-of-way along the servitude, regardless of the DPW improvements. However, Sewage and Water Board will need to approve a private right-of-way. A representative from the Department of Real Estate and Records also stated improvements would most likely not be permitted on the second Sewage and Water Board servitude on the applicant's property, shown as Peralt Walk on the survey. The City Planning Commission staff contacted Sewage and Water Board for further clarification, but has not received a response at this time. The staff reviewed the updated survey submitted by the applicant, which proposes 4 new lots of record instead of the 5 lots of record originally proposed. All 4 lots of record will front on what will eventually become a private or a public right-of-way, Mark Drive. The applicant is aware this is a prerequisite to receive final approval of the subdivision. The updated survey also results in 2 lots with insufficient lot depth, lots F1A1 and F1E2. In the SRS Suburban Single Family Residential District, the required minimum lot depth is 100 feet in accordance with Article 13, Section 13.3 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. Proposed lot F1A1 would have a lot depth of 94.75 feet, variance for 5.25 feet. Proposed lot F1A2 would have a lot depth of 94.65 feet, necessitating a variance for 5.35 feet. In addition, Section 5.3.3 of the subdivision regulations states that streets should not abruptly dead end as is proposed by DPW and shown on the survey. Instead, streets should end in a cul-de-sac that is at least 62 feet in width. In the case of this subdivision, the proposed street pattern aligns with the other parallel streets that end at Dwyer Canal. In addition, the servitude is only 50 feet in width, deficient by 12 feet to create a compliant cul-de-sac. The staff believes the applicant should receive a waiver of this requirement due to the Sewage and Water Board servitude, the DPW street improvements, and the historic street pattern of the area. The staff recommends tentative approval of subdivision docket 7321, subject to creating a new right-of-way along Mark Drive, receiving the 2 required variances, and fulfilling the standard subdivision provisos.
Thank you. Is the applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
I'm here.
Ms. Scandaliato, can you state your name and address, please?
Amy Scandaliato, 8480 Morrison Road, New Orleans, 70127.
Great. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So I did meet on the phone with Steve and Rachel and Robert, and we discussed everything. And so I did revise the survey, and I am agreeing to do the dedication to the city of New Orleans for the street right of way. And I also agreed that, I would go before the BZA to ask for the variance in the lot depth, since it will be creating a lot that's not 100 feet, which it should be. So I did agree to do that. And really that's it. I mean, I'm fine with everything in the report and all the requirements. So other than that, that's really it.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions of the staff or the applicant? Thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on. Zoning docket 7821.
Zoning docket 7821. This proposed text amendment asks the City Planning Commission to consider permitting cemeteries as a use within the MU1 medium intensity mixed use districts throughout the city. Currently, cemeteries are only a permitted use within the OSN neighborhood open space district. Cemeteries are classified as an open space use. Cemeteries are prohibited in all districts outside of the OSN district and are therefore a prohibited use in much of the city. The applicants have requested this text amendment to expand their cemetery operations located at 4000 Norman Mayer Avenue, a lot on the opposite block face at 2050 Catton Street. This lot will contain a 7,500 crypt, mausoleum, and parking spaces for visitation. Limiting cemeteries to only the OSN neighborhood open space district severely limits the expansion of existing cemeteries or the new construction of cemeteries and cemetery facilities. As there are already several use standards in Article 20.3.n that restrict which sites can accommodate a cemetery based on overall lot square footage and through additional setback requirements, permitting the use in more districts should not have any adverse impacts. Staff does not consider any changes to the proposed use standards in this report, but instead recommends a change in the proposed language to allow cemeteries by right and through the conditional use process based on use standard of compliance. Existing cemeteries may expand to a separate lot, but be considered part of the same site, such as an adjacent lot or across the street from an existing site. New cemetery sites that may not have the required square footage and setbacks to permit a new cemetery by right can seek a conditional use and any necessary variances from the City Planning Commission as part of the conditional use process. Not limiting cemeteries to just the OSN districts could further the goals to preserve existing historic cemeteries by taking some development pressure off historic facilities. The proposed text amendment is also consistent with the master plan and meets the approval standards in Article 4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. Therefore, staff is supportive of the text amendment and expanding cemeteries as a use to the MU1 district, but recommends additional language to create the use as both a permitted use with added criteria or a conditional use and recommends modified approval.
Thank you. Is the applicant or applicant's representative on the call? Are there any questions for staff on the report? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to zoning docket 8221.
Zoning docket 8221 is a request by City Council motion for text changes that would increase the allowable signage at hospitals citywide. The general purpose of this request is to ensure that hospitals can adequately direct consumers visiting hospital facilities. The motion proposes specific language that would create hospital wayfinding signs and hospital campus entryway sign categories that are in addition to overall detached permanent sign allowances and would apply to medical and/or hospital campuses citywide. Additionally, hospitals would be able to install wall signs along any lot line, whereas typical wall signs must face a street frontage. Overall, it would result in hospitals throughout the city being able to construct more and larger signage. Central to the staff's analysis is that the city's hospitals are located within highly varied contexts. So a set of regulations that is appropriate for one may not be appropriate for others. Rather, the signage plan needs to be customized to the unique conditions and circumstances of the institution's campus. The institutional signage plan must therefore be considered within the context of the hospital's institutional master plan, a document that sets a future development vision for the entire campus and which provides the opportunity to effectively customize zoning regulations to the campus. The staff recommends modifying the institutional master plan process to enable variation in signage regulations as an administrative design review process. Currently, Article 15, Section 15.5.8.2 states that if the IMP requires modification to the base district standards, including signs, landscape, and parking, and/or any uses, then it requires review by the City Planning Commission and final approval by the City Council. Staff's recommendation is to create Section 15.5.g institutional signage plan for EC and MC districts. This would create an easier process to review an institution's signage needs through a design review process.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next zoning docket 8621.
Zoning docket 8621 is a request for a zoning change from an HURD2 Historic Urban Two-Family Residential District to an HUMU Historic Urban Neighborhood Mixed-Use District and a conditional use to allow the expansion of an existing bar up to 10,000 square feet in floor area. The property is located at 319-325 North Rendon Street in the Mid-City neighborhood and has historically been used as a legally non-conforming parking lot for the adjacent bar, Bayou Beer Garden, located at 326 North Norman C. Francis Parkway. The subject property was rezoned from an LI light industrial zoning district in 2015 as part of the comprehensive zoning changes throughout the city. The bar and its parking area have existed in their current location predating the 2015 zoning change. The subject site became legally non-conforming upon the zoning change. The lot on which the bar is located along North Norman St. Francis Parkway was rezoned to HUMU Historic Urban Neighborhood Mixed Use District as part of the 2015 zoning change, while the parking area was rezoned to HURD2 Historic Urban Two-Family Residential District. The applicant is proposing to expand the outdoor seating portion of the bar to occupy the existing parking area. The expansion constitutes an increase in the bar's square footage. Bars are a prohibited use in the HURD2 district. Therefore, the applicant is seeking a zoning change to an HUMU district. In the HUMU district, bars are a conditional use and commercial uses over 5,000 square feet in area also need conditional use approval. The total square footage after the proposed expansion would be 9,415 square feet in area. The request, if approved, would remove the existing on-site parking. The applicant is concurrently requesting a conditional use and zoning change for the property located at 316 to 324 North Rendon Street to utilize this property as off-site parking for Bayou Beer Garden and Bayou Wine Garden. Bayou Wine Garden is located adjacent to the subject property at 315 North Rendon Street. This request will be heard next in zoning docket 8721. The subject site has an established history of commercial use. It has been used as outdoor seating for Bayou Beer Garden, as well as its off-street parking since at least 2011. The proposal will align the zoning of the site with the boundaries of the development. Due to the historical use and nature of the site, the staff believes the zoning change and conditional use are appropriate for this location. The conditional uses of proviso should mitigate any negative impacts associated with the expansion of the bar. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of zoning docket 8621, subject to 13 provisos.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
Yes, I'm here, David Demarest.
David, could you just state your name and address, please?
Yes, David Demarest. The address of the subject property is 326 North Norman C. Francis.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so since everything with the pandemic, we've learned a lot about having to space out seating and how important outdoor seating has become to outdoor business or businesses in general. We had also received the RRF money, which was primarily or some was meant to be used for expansion of outdoor seating as well. Taking in all this information and being that tables are spaced the way they are these days, we've opted to try to use our current parking lot, which we actually are using extra seating in already currently, to expand this as a permanent use to help mitigate any risk in the future for what may happen and the unknown. So due to this, we've decided to try to kind of bring things into outdoor seating world. And so this is what you're looking at. And obviously we need the parking across the street to help meet all conditional uses. So this is where we are.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or for staff?
I have one question for the applicant. In losing the current parking right now, how many spots is that?
Well, it's maybe, I guess technically it's more like 16 or 17, but it may be, yeah, it's just, it's tough to say these days is all, because
So what would be the net from the additional parking, right?
the parking across the street, we're looking to get 27 or 28 more spots, which should help satisfy conditional uses for Bayou Wine Gardens conditional use and hopefully Bayou Beer Garden. We're also asking for I think that only gets us to maybe 19 when I was reading the staff report. We're asking for a waiver to get up to 27 or 28, which is just an ultimate need in general if we have the extra space over there.
Right. So what would be the net after losing those 16? Is the net
Oh,
27?
no, 0. You'll have nothing left in that current lot for parking.
No, with the combined parking. So because you already have existing parking across the street. So are you going to get additional space across the street?
There's not technically existing parking across the street. So we're just going to build out 27 spots across the street or 28 spots across the street.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next zoning docket 8721.
Zoning docket 8721 is a request for a zoning change from an HURD2 historic urban two-family residential district to an HUB1 historic urban neighborhood business district and a conditional use to permit a parking lot. The property is located at 314 through 326 North Rendon Street in the Mid-City neighborhood and is currently vacant. Specifically, the zoning change to HUB1 would allow for the consideration of a conditional use to permit a parking lot principal use for use in conjunction with Bayou Beer Garden, Bayou Wine Garden, and Piece of Beef. As proposed, the parking lot principal use would provide 27 off-street parking spaces along with glass recycling and a trash compactor. This request is in conjunction with the previous request for zoning docket 8621. Staff believes that the applicant's request does not meet the approval standards for either zoning changes or conditional uses. However, finding a more suitable alternative to achieve the desire for off-street parking, staff believes that a conditional use pursuant to Article 22, Section 22(8)(b)(2) to provide an accessory parking lot in a residential district without the need for a zoning change is appropriate for the subject site. However, the accessory parking lot would be limited to only the required number of off-street parking spaces after any exemptions are applied. As such, the applicant may need to revise plans to reduce the number of provided spaces. The staff recommends modified approval of zoning docket 8721. Denial of the requested zoning change from HURD2 to HUB1 and denial of the conditional use to permit a parking lot principal use and approval of the conditional use pursuant to Article 22, Section 22(8)(b)(2) to permit an accessory off-street parking lot subject to 10 provisos.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative?
Yeah. Yes, that's me as well.
Hi.
So while we're definitely in for any way to get extra parking across the street, from my understanding, the reason why we were going for the zoning change in the first place is that we would be able to proviso and conditional use any future use beyond it being a parking lot. And the history of it being light industrial would help that along. Although, again, if an accessory lot to satisfy conditional use is the best route, that's definitely a good way to go. We do not think it's beneficial to have a parking lot with less spaces and a place that just needs more parking here. So, if there's a waiver or something that we would be able to do to be able to just pick up any extra spot, that would be very suited to the neighborhood. Although that's why I think we went the route of the zoning change. So, we also do have some neighbors that would put in letters on this as well. Although we're not looking for a deferral here, we're just looking to make it work at this point. So just let us know what the easiest way to go is. Again, I was under the impression that if we did do the zoning change, we would be able to we've satisfied the MCNO, the neighbors, with 2 NPP meetings and they were in agreement with, just as long as there were provisos in the zoning change, that there was no future use for anything else except the parking lot, and it would go back to RD2 at that point if something happened. So, again, we're open to just getting as much parking over there as possible.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the staff or applicant?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Stieg. I have a question for the applicant, which is, I wasn't clear on your last statement. Are you asking for if you're asking for something other than what staff recommended, can you state what it is?
Yeah, so originally, from my understanding with the what staff is recommending is that they're giving us accessory parking to satisfy the two conditional uses. Unfortunately, that only meets about 19 spots. So unless there's a waiver to help us get up to the 27 or 28 spot, we would prefer to go the zoning change route to HUB1 with a conditional use for parking to be able to get the full 27 or 28 spots. It doesn't seem right to put a place that needs more parking with having 8 less spots. That's pretty valuable in a situation for a neighborhood that needs the parking at that point. And our neighbors would agree.
Right.
That's kind of my dilemma.
So staff, can you comment on that, on the dilemma, and which is the waiver within our purview? And can you comment on that? What was your evaluation of that? And if the commission wanted to have there to be 27 spaces, what's the best way to get there?
So as far as the staff review, we did not review any waiver request in conjunction with this case. Of course, any variance would have to meet the 9 approval standards in order to ultimately receive approval. As far as the applicant's request for the zoning change, the zoning change, of course, as you know, opens up a wide array of more intensive uses, and that is largely a residential area, despite the fact that there are a number of non-residential uses along those major thoroughfares. But that was staff's thinking that the applicant could get largely what they are requesting without the higher intensity allowance. The applicant had also noted that they could request a zoning change back to HURD2 after this, after the parking lot is installed. Of course, we would have to review that as a zoning change request. It would have to come before you and City Council again. But just kind of right off the bat, we saw that there would be a number of approval standards that wouldn't be met to reverse the zoning change back to HURD2. And it would also create a nonconformity, which is not really something that the zoning ordinance enjoys doing.
So if they wanted to apply for a waiver, would that require doing it in a separate application since hasn't been evaluated by staff? Would that go to the BZA or to us?
It would have to go before you all because it's associated with the conditional use. And Stephen, you can jump in.
Yeah, actually, a waiver is something that can't be granted for the type of parking lot approval we're recommending. And this gets very technical in terms of how the CZO deals with parking lots. But essentially, if this property has a commercial zoning, it can also have a parking lot that has unlimited numbers of spaces, as many as can fit on the property. The problem with that is that the master plan doesn't allow this property to be commercially zoned because it doesn't have a history of commercial use. Separately from that, there's another regulation that says residentially zoned property can have off-site parking when the off-site parking is used solely to fulfill a legal requirement under the zoning ordinance. So in this case, because there is a requirement that Bayou Beer Garden and Bayou Wine Garden provide parking, that provides the ability to approve this parking lot under the residential zoning. So you no longer have the master plan issue. The the string that comes along with that, or the, you know, the limitation that comes along with that, is that you can only use it to provide the parking that's legally required and nothing beyond that. And so, you know, if 19 spaces are required here, which is what we believe the requirement is, there's not an ability to provide a 27. The permission would be limited to only those 19 required spaces.
Thanks for that. That's complicated, but pretty clear. Thank you.
Are there any other questions of the applicant or of staff?
Am I allowed to comment on any of the other provisos at this point as well?
No, I guess if, do you have any issue with any of the provisos?
With
That's the question.
Yeah, I guess the other proviso was the dumpster being on the same lot as, if we go back to the previous zoning docket, one of the provisos was having my trash abatement or a dumpster on the same lot. But I'm wondering if, since when Bayou Wine Garden went through its conditional use, we were allowed to have the dumpster on a separate lot, and then also Piece of Meat, we were allowed to have the dumpster on a separate lot just within 300 feet. And then we did the Piece of Meat extension conditional use as well, and that was also allowed. Or would we be able to do trash receptacles and then just have as our trash abatement plan, and then just use our mutual compactor that we have that will be used across the street?
Staff, can you answer that? Or do you have any insight?
I think the reason why the dumpsters were permitted for the other uses on other lots of record is most likely because the other lots of record had a principal structure. In this case, what's being proposed is a dumpster area that has to be screened. So it becomes an accessory structure, and it would be on a lot without a principal structure. And that is prohibited in, I think it's Article 21. And that's why we had provisoed that it be on the same lot as where the other bar is, because we're also recommending, as provisoed, that they consolidate the lots into one lot of record.
So I have a question. If the lots were all being re-subdivided into one lot, then it's not going to be a project on its own. We'd have a principal structure on there at that point. So technically Bayou Beer Garden would be the principal structure, which is a building at that point. So I'm wondering if we would be able to make an exception since there is a principal structure at that point. And so that would align with the other exceptions that were made.
Well, the plans are showing that the dumpster area would be in the parking area across the street.
Well, no. So yes. So with Bayou Wine Garden, that was a separate lot, and Piece of Meat was a separate lot. Yet we were granted the trash were allowed to be on a separate lot. From my understanding, I think you just, I might have misunderstood you. You said because there was not a principal structure on the lot, you were recommending a dumpster facility there. But Bayou Beer Garden is actually being re-subdivided into the same lot as this structure. So there is a principal structure technically on the lot. You know, it's all re-subdivided into one lot at this point. So it would kind of fit what we've done before.
Staff, is this on deadline? Because it seems like there's a number of questions that still that may need to be worked out with the applicant.
Can I comment quickly on what was just stated? Because I think there's a little bit of confusion. The dumpster area being proposed on the lot of record that would become parking, that's going to be a separate lot than what's being proposed to be consolidated with Bayou Beer Garden. And so therefore I would not have a principal structure. I'm just trying to clarify that.
The lot across the street would not have a principal structure.
Correct.
Is there a way to
Mr. Dimris,
I'm sorry.
We may have to table this. If there are any other questions from the commission for staff or for the applicant.
I may have asked if it was on deadline, and it is.
Okay.
Today.
Yeah, I think these are pretty narrow technical questions that we can work through as it proceeds to council.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff or the applicant from the commission? Okay, hearing none. Zoning docket 8821.
This report considers a proposal to add a fast food restaurant along South Claiborne Avenue within a C2 auto-oriented commercial district and an HUC historic urban corridor use restriction overlay district and an EC enhancement corridor district. The subject property is currently unimproved and vacant, and the applicants propose constructing an approximately 1,225 square foot fast food restaurant on the site with an excessive front yard setback. The current proposed design is problematic. The zoning ordinance requires that new structures have front setbacks that match existing neighboring buildings. This requirement exists to ensure that new construction meshes with older building stock, creating a cohesive streetscape. As designed, this site would have a suburban style design with the building setback from the street and parking in front of the building. It is necessary that the design be modified to meet the front setback requirement, which could be achieved by flipping the site plan and having the structure at the front of the side and parking at the rear. Should the site design be improved, the use of the proposed structure as a fast food restaurant is allowable. The subject property exists within a heavily trafficked stretch of Claiborne Avenue, which is designed for auto-oriented uses such as a fast food restaurant. Many fast food restaurants exist within this immediate surrounding area, and an additional proposed fast food restaurant meets the overall context and character. Therefore, staff is supportive of the conditional use request to permit a fast food restaurant, and staff recommended provisos should bring the site into compliance. Staff recommends approval subject to 10 provisos.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call? Are there any questions?
Yes.
Oh. Mr.
Hello?
Kong.
Hey, how are you? Can you see me?
Good.
Hi.
You can. Can you state your name and address, please?
Okay, this is Louis Kong, 5726 St. Charles Avenue.
Okay, thank you. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, the land is vacant right now. There was a apartment building there before Katrina, and this has been demolished since the hurricane, and it's just vacant, and it's being used as a garbage dump by the neighbors' apartment buildings. So the owner bought that a few years ago, hoping to develop into a rental building, hoping to have a tenant who is a fast food restaurant operator. He is open to moving the building closer to the other building line with the neighbors. However, the lot is very narrow, so it's hard to develop it. But if that is required, I think he would comply to move the parking back behind the building. So that's about it.
Okay. Are there any questions from the commission for staff or the applicant? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Kong. Next, zoning docket 8921.
Zoning docket 8921 is a request for a conditional use to permit a commercial use over 5,000 square feet in an HUMU historic urban mixed use district. The applicant proposes to adaptively reuse the former rectory building of Our Lady of the Lord's Catholic Church as an office for Bellwether Technology, a locally owned information technology service. The proposal is for the rectory only. The church remains for sale. The proposed use of the site as a commercial use requires a conditional use, as the site is in an HUMU district, which requires conditional use approval for commercial uses over 5,000 square feet. This request is consistent with the HUMU district's orientation toward commercial uses that serve the immediate area and the mixed-use, low-density FLUM designation's intent to increase neighborhood convenience and walkability within and along edges of neighborhoods, with neighborhoods serving retail/commercial establishments. Additionally, the proposal will improve the area by bringing a vacant portion of the site back into commerce, and the staff finds that the proposed use meets the standards for approval in Article 4. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of zoning docket 8921, subject to 7 provisos.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. It's Mike Sherman, 800 Barone Street, on behalf of Bellwether Technology.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Go ahead.
First, we want to thank staff for their staff report, very thoughtful staff report and support of the requested conditional use. We're here for one reason only. The existing historic rectory building is over 5,000 square feet. Bellwether Technology will be relocating its corporate headquarters into the building. And because it's over 5,000 feet, any use of this type would trigger the conditional use requirement. We've worked closely with our neighbors and have been really welcomed with this use. It is much lower intensity than anything that's been proposed on this site or anything that previously existed. We ask the commission for your support on behalf of Bellwether Technology and its principal, Mr. Pokoshlos.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff or the applicant? Hearing none, we'll move on. Zoning docket 9021.
Zoning docket 9021 is a request for a conditional use to allow an existing restaurant called the Bird's Nest Cafe in Lake Vista to add alcohol to their offerings. It is a neighborhood restaurant located at the central community core of Lake Vista. It's been in operation for several years and is sort of, after 4 years of operation, is revisiting its offerings. And part of that is to add alcohol sales. The staff is generally supportive of alcohol sales in restaurants. It's a customary part of restaurant operations, and so the staff recommends approval with 2 provisos, which are standard operational provisos.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
Hi, I'm here. I'm Courtney Enderly, and the address is 6508 Spanish Fort Boulevard.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
So the Bird's Nest Cafe is a small family-owned and run business restaurant in the heart of Lake Vista. We have been here for over 4 years, and like any small business, we've suffered with first the pandemic and now with Hurricane Ida, and we're just trying to create a little bit more revenue. We've been here for, like I said, over 4 years, and the community has asked repeatedly, when can we sell wine and beer? So we have a what used to be like a kid's room. It's already in there, and I think you can see it on the pictures there, but it was already kind of open anyway, like it had open windows. So what we're proposing is to turn that room into kind of a wine cellar. So the wine and the alcohol would actually be, the wine and the beer would actually be contained in the little room. That's packaged, to go wine and beer. So it's kind of like a wine shop within the cafe. And that's what everybody, we've worked closely with the Lake Vista property owners, and we've gotten to know all of the regulars, and this is what people have asked for time and time again. So we're trying to create a little revenue while also giving the community what they want.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or for staff?
I have a question for the applicant. I'm very familiar with the area and the shop, and I'm wondering, is there going to be a kitchen, or is it just grab and go still? Or
so what we have right now is we don't have a kitchen, and we're not allowed. The property is owned by the LMA, or the levy board, the NFPAMA, and we were never allowed to have a full kitchen. So right now we kind of work with a panini press and some crock pots behind the counter, but we don't have a full kitchen. And we do serve some hot food, but it's not like a full kitchen, and we will never be able to have a full kitchen. So grab and go.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant or for staff? If not, we'll move on to zoning docket 9121.
Good afternoon. Before I begin, I just want to be clear. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, does anyone have any trouble hearing?
It's a bit jumbled.
Yeah,
so-
it's a little, it skips a little bit.
There's kind of an echo, Joseph.
Let me try again.
Ah, that's better.
All right. Zoning docket 9121 is a request for a conditional use to permit a hotel in a CBD 5 urban core neighborhood lower intensity mixed use district. The municipal addresses are 823 through 843 Camp Street. The site is presently occupied by 2 vehicular parking lots, an existing 4-story commercial structure occupied by an office and emergency shelter, and as many as 4 ancillary structures in the rear of the site. The proposal calls for maintaining the existing principal structure and adding a new 5th floor for a hotel use and demolishing the rest of the rear structure to redevelop the site with a new 6-story downriver mixed-use development with multifamily dwelling, standard restaurant, and 135 vehicular parking garage for a total gross floor area of 139,000 square feet for the site. The proposed hotel is unique relative to typical hotel conditional use requests, given that the proposal would be paired with the addition of residential multifamily dwellings and a vehicular parking garage. Renovating the building to include hotel rooms in one structure with a new mixed-use structure that develops an underutilized surface parking lot with active roof featuring a standard restaurant could have slightly higher impacts on the surrounding area than a single-use hotel. The proposed hotel being paired with residential component of the project could add long-term residents to the area as desired by the CBD 5 district, as well as the pedestrian and other generated traffic from the hotel, provide a positive increase to the area. The staff defined that the requested waiver for excessive building height failed to meet 6 of the 9 criteria of the standards for variances of Article 4, Section 4.6.f of the CZO, finding that the proposal doesn't provide sufficient justification for the nominal height request in excessive vehicular parking. The 135 vehicular parking spaces on site is approximately 221% of what would be required for the proposed cumulative uses. The staff has determined eliminated or curbing the amount of vehicular parking would be beneficial, especially to meet the height requirement and allow the development the ability to satisfy the required uses on the ground floor as required per Article 17, Section 17.3.b.1. And now, while hotels are generally permitted uses in the CBD area, they're classified as conditional uses in the CBD 5 district since 2015 because the district is intended to be more residential in character than other parts of the CBD. Question being raised is if the addition of another hotel still meets the purpose of the district. Staff has recommended approval of a few other similar requests, finding that the use is compatible with the plan for the 21st century and the existing concentration of commercial uses in the CBD 5 district. CZO does not determine the exact threshold between appropriate and inappropriate number of hotels. And so the staff shares the concern about the overall effect of overconcentration of hotels and other commercials in the CBD 5 district because it would conflict with the district's intent. However, the staff does not find that the addition of this particular hotel would significantly affect the ratio of commercial uses to residential uses in the district in a way that is contrary, as the specific hotel request will occupy an equivalent portion of overall development that also includes residential dwellings. This site meets the use approval standards, those of the mixed-use downtown core floor FLUM designation of the plan for the 21st century, and those of the CBD 5 base zoning district. Therefore, the staff can approve the hotel element of the project and welcome additional multifamily dwellings, especially in a project that meets the threshold to include affordable housing. The staff recommends approval of zoning docket 9121 subject to 25 provided.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
Good afternoon, Mike Sherman, 800 Broad Street on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Go ahead.
So there's a lot to get to here. I'll do my best to cover in this first 2 minutes and then look forward to plenty of questions and answers probably later in the meeting or when the commission desires. Our firm's first really proud to work on this project. We were counsel for the O's and M Inn for their relocation into a new facility. It's a fabulous new facility that enables them to better serve New Orleans homeless population. This is an adaptive reuse of the former Ozanam Inn structure and then 2 surface parking lots that are sitting adjacent to it. Many have commented that of the neighbors on Camp Street have commented that this is a block desperate for activity. We had strong and unanimous support from our Camp Street neighbors of this property. I'll talk later for a minute about some of the concerns expressed by the building adjacent to us. We've got a lot going on here. There's few components to this project. First, this site is owned by 3 different individuals. They've put it together to form one development. One of those owners is the Advocate, which has its corporate headquarters on the back side of the proposed new structure. So 2 of the 3 floors of parking are mission critical for the Advocate to have a corporate headquarters in the heart of downtown New Orleans for their St. Charles building. So 2 of our 3 floors of parking are for the Advocate to meet their parking demand. They have over 100 spaces leased all over the CBD, some of them going away as new developments spring up. We have 1 floor of parking to serve the hotel, condos, and restaurant. We have 2 floors of condos that are, as our MPP makes clear, are part of the hotel. These will be individually owned condominium units that are part of the hotel use, that can be where the amenities will be shared by the owners, and these condos can be placed into the, can you hear me still? I just got to pause. Will be placed into the hotel pool. We have a rooftop amenity, which is a restaurant with substantial open space, and then we have the adaptive reuse of the historic structure. There are some provisos that we believe are inapplicable that are in there. We will put in a comment to focus on those. The project is at its root a hotel. On the maximum parking requirement, we also find that to be inapplicable. Parking is a permitted use in a structure in the CBD, and part of that parking is for the Advocate as a principal use. So we will not trigger those parking requirements. In my final few seconds, I want to make one brief comment. While we have had strong and tremendous support from many constituencies in the CBD and all of our Camp Street neighbors, we do have concerns from our St. Charles neighbors who abut the building. 3 of those units and the pool for that very, very lovely condo building facing St. Charles look out over the 2 surface parking lots. So by having any development here, forget the extra 10 feet for the rooftop, any development would serve as only 10 or 11 feet from their property line, would have some blocking effect of their views and light. And we met with them as recently this morning and look forward to sharing more in response to their concerns. But that is a disconnect with the zoning ordinance, which in the CBD has 0 setbacks in this CBD 5 district. Other than that, we've been very warmly received by our neighbors, and we look forward to answering questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Are there any questions of staff or the applicant? Okay, hearing none. The next will be zoning docket 9221, and I will be recusing myself, and Commissioner Witry will be handling this docket.
Zoning docket 9221. Staff report, please.
Yes, this is a request that would permit the construction of a 7,000 square foot restaurant with on-site brewery and a bar located on the first floor of the Odeon building, which is a 29-story mixed-use building located in the South Market District, downtown. The ground floor contains approximately 11,000 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor, which is currently vacant, and the proposed bar restaurant would occupy a portion of that space located at the corner of Loyola Avenue and Girard Street. The proposed space includes an open space dining area and a bar, a kitchen, a brewing area, and restrooms. Standards restaurant allow brewing facilities as part of their operation, but a bar requires a conditional use because these types of facilities are perceived to have a little bit more intense impact on the surrounding area. The applicant indicated that their proposal is not purely for a bar, but that their plan is for the restaurant to serve close to as much food as alcohol, and that the requested conditional use for the bar would essentially be necessary if sales of alcohol were over 50% of the restaurant sale. The property is located in a CBD 1 district, and is surrounded by large structures with a variety of residential, office, and commercial uses. The proposed use would bring more visitors into this portion of Loyola Avenue, which is still underutilized at the present time, while also being within walking distance of a number of destinations, including the Superdome. The level of alcohol-related impact would depend on the quality of the management of the facility, and there are operational provisos recommended in the report that would help ensure that the proposed use does not have negative effects on adjacent uses. The proposed use would meet the goals of the master plan to encourage and support a compact, walkable, transit-oriented mixed-use neighborhood at the core of the city, and would be consistent with a range of uses envisioned for this area, which include a wide range of uses, such as commercial entertainment uses that serves both resident and visitors. So staff is recommending approval of zoning docket 9221, subject to 8 provisos.
Thank you, Sabine. Is the applicant present? If so, please state your name and address.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, CPC members and staff. Richard Cortez, 201 St. Charles Avenue, on behalf of the applicant.
Please go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Members of the commission, Madam Chair, this is really an exciting new development to the South Market District by the developers of the South Market District. As staff mentioned, this is an application for conditional use approval of a bar. Really, it's a microbrewery restaurant concept, right, in the South Market. The plan here is to provide the South Market District community with an exciting restaurant microbrewery concept in an already existing vacant and commercial space. The plan here is to really enhance and revitalize that area, and the district has already happened, but to build on, right, as intended as well under the 21st century plan. Food will be central to the operation and significant part of the operations, right? Again, this project is in a CBD1 district, which you all know is a high density mixed use development district that is intended to accommodate uses such as offices, financial services, commercial services, and those uses that serve local, regional, and national markets, as well as multifamily housing, retail, entertainment, hotel, government, institutional, and the like. We believe that this project not only revitalizes, but it enhances this area of CBD1. We meet the building standards. We will meet all of the bar requirements, and it's a great project. And as staff has commented, we respectfully ask for your assent and consent of the staff's recommendation for approval with the provisos. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Commissioners, do you have any additional questions? Comments? Hearing none, we'll move to zoning docket 093-21. Please have the staff report.
Yes. Zoning docket 9321 is a request by East Skelly LLC for a conditional use to permit a curb cut along Poydras Street in a CBD4 exposition district and a multimodal pedestrian corridor. The petition property is located on the public right-of-way adjacent to an undesignated parcel on Square 365 in the First Municipal District, bounded by Poydras Street, Ferret Street, LaSalle Street, and Perdido Street. The municipal address is 1515 Poydras Street. This conditional use is to permit a curb cut as part of a renovation of an existing office tower to a mixed-use office and residential tower. Article 22, Section 22.11.b prohibits curb cuts on streets including Julia Street from St. Charles to Convention Center Boulevard, but allows for the application of a conditional use if there is no other means of vehicle access on the streets. The curb cut is proposed to be located on Poydras Street near its intersection with LaSalle Street. Given the number of units the development will create, in particular short-term rentals, there will be a need for passenger loading, unloading, and temporary parking that cannot be accommodated by curbside space. On-site passenger space must also be provided. Given the building's footprint, it is only possible for such space to be provided off of Poydras Street, necessitating the installation of the proposed curb cuts. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of zoning docket 9321, subject to 2 provisos.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
Yes. Hey, this is Ryan Thompson, landscape architect with Thomas and Hutton, representing the ownership group. Thank you to staff for a wonderful staff report. I just wanted to briefly go through a couple of things related to it. Staff report did allude to the need for the motor court and the curb cut that would allow access to it. With that, we got feedback, and we presented the plan in 2019 to the DAC. We got some feedback on that and other things that we spent 2020 working on. And the main focus on that was how do we make sure we're focused on preserving pedestrian safety across that Porter Street frontage. So we've been working with staff in multiple departments and landed on a few things. I know it's hard to see on the image there on the screen, but hopefully the staff packet can show it a bit better. But we've really focused on safety on that. I know the proviso is talking specifically points to that, but we really focused on making sure that driveway is flush with the existing sidewalk, so the pedestrians have the dominant flow. We've also worked with staff to identify ways to identify where the curb cut and the drive aisle are is what in relationship to the sidewalk, but not to block that pedestrian flow. So one of the things, knowing where this site is and the amount of events that are there and the need for large flows of pedestrians on event days, we've actually worked to identify through use of bollards instead of curbs to really focus on the safety. We'll be able to move some of the bollards to open up the flow all the way through the sidewalk area, and actually will block this curb cut off on event days. So to really preclude that concern of the vehicular and pedestrian conflicts. We did represent the plan to the DAC in February of 2021. I got a positive recommendation there. And from that point, we've been working with the staff of Public Works and Parks and Parkways to further refine the rest of the streetscape. So, and recognizing that this curb cut is just a portion of the overall Porter streetscape. So we are really proud of the end design. We think it's going to be a great improvement with the conversion of the building, much needed. And with that, I'm happy to address any questions that I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Are there any questions for the applicant or for staff? Okay, hearing none. Zoning docket 9421.
Zoning docket 9421 is a request for a zoning change from a C1 general commercial district to C3 heavy commercial district. The subject property is an approximately 1.6 acre tract located just east of St. Mary's Academy campus in New Orleans East. The proposal is intended to enable the sale of used cars at this property. Currently, the property is used as a motor vehicle repair facility, which was authorized as a conditional use under zoning docket 5217. The intended use of the site as a motor vehicle dealership is not allowed under the current C1 zoning, but is allowed by right under the proposed C3 district. The C3 district is the highest intensity commercial designation and is intended for large-scale commercial development, serving the entire city and portions of the surrounding region. It's generally applied to sizable parcels that are well suited for large format commercial development due to their proximity to very high capacity transportation infrastructure. In New Orleans East, C3 districts are most commonly located along Interstate 10, although there is a C3 district covering the several properties along the south side of Chef-Menteur Highway between Downman Road and Interstate 10. In addition to motor vehicle dealerships, other land uses that are allowed in C3 that are not allowed in C1 include broadcast studios, drive-through facilities, greenhouses and nurseries, heavy equipment sales, rental service facilities, movie studios, printing facilities, and warehouses. These land uses are considered among the most intensive commercial uses and are allowed in C3 districts, but not lower intensity commercial districts because of their intensity of operation can result in significant land use impacts that justify reserving them for select commercial locations. Although the applicant's proposal is allowable under the general commercial future land use designation, which allows for the property to be zoned C1 or C3, there's no justification for upzoning this property to a higher intensity zoning than the other properties in this zoning district. All of the properties in this C3 district along Chef-Ventura Highway are similarly situated, and there is no justification for zoning this property differently from all the others in the district. Therefore, the staff recommends denial.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
Hi, I'm Tara Green. I'm the representative for T&B Automotive. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi, T&B Automotive have been in business since 2000. And they were zoned right next door, about 40 feet at 7334 Chef Ventura to sell cars. And during the 2017 zoning change, they were grandfathered in. Mr. Yarrows is the owner of the property, and he purchased the property right next door. So he's been in business for a total of over 20 years. He purchased this property next door that we're requesting a zoning change at 7358. He purchased the property in 2016, and he's been doing minor used car repair for about two and a half years now. So I guess we're just wondering, is there any, I mean, he literally used to sell cars right next door. So that's why we didn't understand why the zoning change would be denied. We hadn't had any complaints from the surrounding neighbors or businesses. Councilmember Wynn even came out and met with us and said that it was a nice location, gated off. We wouldn't have any problems with traffic. The business hours we plan on doing is Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And we've been, you know, basically a good business in the New Orleans East area for quite a while. So we're just hoping that you guys will reconsider to changing the zoning to allow us to sell used cars.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Are there any questions for the applicant or for staff? No, hearing none, we'll move on to the next zoning docket, 9521.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
The purpose of this council motion is to designate Tujac signs at 823 and 429 Decatur Street as classic signs in section 24.15 of the comprehensive zoning ordinance, and also to establish a procedure for classic sign replicas to be installed at new locations when a business moves. Classic signs are those generally historic signs that are deemed to be of special significance and therefore exempt from the provisions of the comprehensive zoning ordinance. In the case of Tujac, the historic sign is not owned by the business, and the building property owner has decided to retain the sign. The Vieux Carré Commission has already approved both the sign at 823 Decatur Street as a classic sign and the installation of the replica for Tujac's new restaurant location at 429 Decatur Street. The staff finds that the historic sign and its replica are deserving of classic sign designation and recommends approval of the proposed amendments with the addition of text to further allow to establish further allowances for classic sign replicas and to correct an omission concerning the role of the Vieux Carré Commission. So staff recommends modified approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the commission for staff? And does there happen to be anyone from City Council? We'll go ahead and move on to the next, which is subdivision docket 13521.
I don't know if, Madam Chair, I don't know if Lori's coming back. Yeah, Madam Chair, will you mark me recused on this matter, 13521 subdivision?
Noted. Thank you, Commissioner Seek. Recused.
Okay, subdivision docket 13521 is a request by ARC Properties of Louisiana LLC to re-subdivide Lot A2 and a portion of Lot B2 into lots A2A, A2B, and A2C on square 464 in an HURD2 historic urban two-family residential district. The proposal would configure the existing approximately 5,003 square foot lot into 3 lots. Lot A2A would have an area of 1,714 square feet. Lot A, 2B would have an area of approximately 1,507 square feet, and Lot A2C would have a lot area of approximately 1,783 square feet. The applicant has requested the subdivision in order to provide a separate lot of record for the 3 existing residences. The municipal addresses are 3341 through 3347 Phillip Street and 1000 Moss Street. This request is being reviewed under Policy E, re-subdivision of properties developed prior to 1929. The proposal meets criteria A, B, C, and E of Policy E, and that satisfactory evidence is submitted indicating existence of structures prior to 1929. Such evidence, B, the request to separate buildings involves only main or principal buildings. C, proposed side lot lines comply as nearly as possible with subdivision regulations in the comprehensive zoning ordinance. The proposal does not meet criterion D, which requires the proposed lot shall contain a minimum of 1,800 square feet. Proposed lot A2A would be insufficient with the lot width and lot area requirements. Proposed lot A2B would be insufficient with the lot area, lot depth, side yard, and rear yard requirements. And proposed lot A2C would be insufficient with the lot area, lot depth, side yard, and rear yard requirements of this HURD2 district. Therefore, waivers are required for these deficiencies. The proposed lots will not be an excessive variation to the neighborhood norm. The proposal is also consistent with the master plan. Therefore, the staff recommends tentative approval of subdivision 13521 with final approval subject to 3 waivers and 3 provisos.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
Yes, this is Margaret Glass, 201 St. Charles Avenue, New Orleans, 70119. I am here on behalf of the property owner and the applicant.
Great, thank you. You have 2 minutes.
So this is an application for a re-subdivision of 1 lot, which holds 3 residential homes. And the civil purpose is to create 3 separate lots of record, 1 for each of the homes. We agree with the staff report, which says that the subdivision is consistent with the master plan. The lots are similar to others in the area, and the subdivision is an improvement over the existing lot configuration. The only issue raised by staff was the fact that the proposed new lots are deficient either in width, depth, and/or area, but the staff has recommended waivers for these deficiencies, and we agree with the recommendation. As such, we're asking that the commission follow the staff recommendation and grant the tentative approval with the waivers recommended by staff and subject to the provisos recommended by staff. And we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glass. Are there any questions for the staff or the applicant?
Yeah, question for the applicant. So you addressed this, but I just want to put a point on it. There are existing so these lot configurations that are proposed in the re-subdivision match the 3 existing properties that are on the lot, correct?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
So the subdivision we're looking at has 3 distinct lots from 2, and you said that there was 1, so I'm just trying to clear up my own confusion. There's 3 existing properties on this lot, and they correspond to the 3 lots that you have provided A2A, A2B, and A2C. Those match what I'm looking at if I go to Google Map, the 3 properties that are on the lot, correct?
Correct, yes.
And is it coming from 1 lot or 2 lots into these 3?
It's 1 lot. So it's 1 lot currently with 3 buildings, and now there will be 3 lots for 3 buildings.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant or for staff? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on subdivision docket 14221.
Subdivision docket 14221 is a request to re-subdivide lot 12A into two new lots of record, lots 12A1 and 12A2. The applicant is proposing to divide the property for the purpose of selling lot 12A2. The subject site is located in the Mid-City neighborhood within a C2 auto-oriented commercial district. Located on Square 359, the subject site is developed with two warehouse structures, which according to the applicant are currently being used for the fabrication of commercial signage. The proposal would reconfigure the existing lot of record, lot 12A, which currently fronts on Clio Street and Earhart Boulevard, into two new lots of record with frontage on Ferret Street. In this case, the subdivision request is doubtful because the proposal does not meet the requirements of section 5.1.1 of the subdivision regulations, in that it creates new non-conforming conditions on both proposed lots, which include insufficient side yard setback, insufficient corner side yard setback, and insufficient rear yard setback. Further, the proposal fails to meet one of the three criteria under policy B, as noted in Article 3, Section 3.2.2 of the subdivision regulations, and that there are no improvements that exist on the site and dating 1950. Prior to final approval, the applicant would be required to obtain variances from the Board of Zoning Adjustments to permit the creation of two lots with excessive front yard setback, excessive front yard build to line, insufficient side yard setback, insufficient corner side yard setback, and insufficient rear yard setbacks. The staff believes that the requested subdivision is consistent with the master plan and recommends tentative approval of the subdivision subject to 4 provisos.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
Good afternoon. This is Peter Barr, representing Barr Investments. My brother and I own the property. We had this property purchased back in 2000. When we purchased it, there were 15 individual lots. Back then, we had it re-subdivided into one large lot, 12A. The building that we're trying to sell now is on lot number proposed 12-A.2. And we would like to sell this property that we don't use to a school that does, as a technical school, that they want to use it. We know that we have to go through the variance process, but we'd like to get through this process here today so we can take it to the next step and continue operating here in Orleans Parish.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or of staff? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. I think that concludes our zoning dockets for today. Stephen, do you want to discuss the zoning dockets for deferral?
Sure. So you called for a special meeting on November 30th, and we're going to use that to work through our backlog. And we expect that after that meeting, we'll be basically caught up. So we're requesting that you as a commission defer zoning dockets 9621 through 10121 to the November 30th meeting. We're also requesting that you defer the subdivision regulations update indefinitely. We're expecting that we'll be able to bring it back to you in January, but want to just hold off on that until we're ready to do so. So that is the deferral request from staff.
Great, thank you. That concludes the presentation of dockets. We'll be taking a 30-minute recess. So if I could have a motion to recess for the next 30 minutes for comment.
Commissioner Lund, I move that we take a 30-minute recess and reconvene at 2:51 at 3:21.
Thank you, Commissioner Lund. Is there a second?
Witry will second.
Thank you, Commissioner Witry. Commissioner Lund made a motion to take a recess until 3:21. Commissioner Witry seconded. I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg,
Aye.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Great. We'll recess and see you at all at 3:21. Thank you.
Testing 1, 2.
Yep. That's good.
someone, I think, from the corner.
It's not.
Well, let me, how do I turn it on now? I'm in trouble, so I don't know how to turn this off.
Okay, Paul, we should be ready to go, right?
Yes,
Great.
we have the comments.
Thank you. I'll take roll call. Commissioner Alexander.
Present.
Commissioner Brown.
I'm here.
Commissioner Flick, present. Commissioner Lund. Commissioner Mobley.
Okay.
Does anyone hear an echo?
Yes.
Commissioner Steig.
Yes, here.
Commissioner Stewart.
Present.
Commissioner Weidberg.
Today is the 50th anniversary of Led Zeppelin 4, so this might be a little John Bonham homage, maybe, I don't know, but I'm present, yes.
Thank goodness.
Love it.
Commissioner Witchery.
Thank you, Commissioner Weidberg. We like that. Love that.
I'm just saying the echo was kind of nice.
Just wish I thought of it.
Commissioner Witchery. So, okay. Well, we have quorum, so we can begin. First up is subdivision docket 7321.
No public comments.
Thank you. And this was for tentative approval. And if there are any questions or a motion. This was the subdivision of the,
I'll move approval in accordance with staff recommendation. Steig.
Thank you, Commissioner Steig. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Steig made a motion to for tentative approval for subdivision docket 7321, seconded by Commissioner Brown. Are there any comments or discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Steig?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg?
Yes.
I see you, Commissioner Lund.
Commissioner Lund, just yes. Sure.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. Next up is zoning docket 7821.
No public comments.
Thank you. This was the modified approval for the cemeteries zoning docket. Looking if any questions or a motion.
This is Commissioner Lund. I move for modified approval as recommended by staff for zoning docket 7821.
Thank you, Commissioner Lund. Is there a second?
Commissioner Alexander, I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Alexander. Commissioner Lund made a motion for modified approval of zoning docket 7821, seconded by Commissioner Alexander. Are there any comments or discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Steig?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next up is zoning docket 8621.
No public comments.
Okay, this is up for staff recommended approval subject to 13 provisos. This is the city council motion for the hospital signage.
Commissioner Brown, I move approval.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Brown. Who's the
Second,
second? Commissioner
Commissioner
Weidberg. Commissioner Brown made a motion for approval of zoning docket 8621, seconded by Commissioner Weidberg. If there's no public, or if there's no comment, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes, Commissioner Lunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Steig,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg,
Yes.
and Commissioner Witry.
Just to confirm, this is on zoning docket 078-21.
No, I'm sorry, this was for 8621 for the signage, the hospital signage.
Oh, yes, yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, isn't that zoning docket 8221?
8221.
Oh, sorry, it is 8221. I skipped a few. I apologize. So it's for zoning docket 8221. Okay, next is zoning docket 8621.
No public comments.
Thank you. And this is recommended by staff for approval, subject to 13 provisos. And this is for the Bayou Gardens part one of the zoning change for Bayou Gardens.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Weidberg made a motion to approve zoning docket 8621, seconded by Commissioner Steig. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes, Commissioner Lunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Steig,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is zoning docket 8721.
No public comments.
Okay, this is set for modified approval, subject to 10 provisos. This is in relation to the parking lot of the same Bayou Gardens.
I'll make the same motion to approve staff's approval for modified approval.
I'll make the same second. It's a
Thank you.
package.
Great. Commissioner Weidberg made a motion to approve zoning docket 8721, seconded by Commissioner Steig. If there's no discussion, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes, Commissioner Lunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Steig,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Commissioner Witry would like to vote.
Commissioner Witry, I'm sorry. Commissioner Witry.
Commissioner Witry is
Apologize.
present and she would
Thank
like
you.
to vote on yes.
I drew a red line through your name and then I
Yes.
stopped saying it, so I'm gonna write it back in.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Next is zoning docket 8821.
No public comments.
Okay, this is set for approval, subject to 9 provisos.
Commissioner Witry will move for approval with 9 provisos of zoning docket 08821.
Thank you, Commissioner Witry. Is there a second?
I'll second her motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Steig. Commissioner Witry made a motion for approval of zoning docket 821, seconded by Commissioner Sieg. If there's no comments or discussion, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieg?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Weidberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Witry?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next up is zoning docket 8921.
Right, we have one public comment from Poco Sloss, 525 St. Charles Avenue, representing Bellwether Technology Corporation in support. Good afternoon. My name is Poco Sloss, and I am chairman of Bellwether Technology, a locally owned and operated IT management, consulting, support, and services company. We are excited to celebrate 40 years in business and are looking to relocate our headquarters to the historic rectory at 4423 LaSalle Street. Our proposal has been well received by our new neighbors who are happy to see the adaptive reuse of the structure. Many were delighted that our use is less intense than the most recent proposed use of the structure. We are a low impact user to the neighborhood with no retail walk-in traffic and regular business hours of 8 to 5 on weekdays. On behalf of our company, I would like to thank the City Planning Commission staff for its support, and we respectfully ask for your favorable considerations so that we may proceed with this relocation. Best regards, Poco Sloss.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move approval. I think this is a win-win for everybody. It's a less intense use. It's a local business. The neighbors are happy. So I move approval in accordance with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Brown will second with the same sentiments. It's this exciting redevelopment, and second the motion.
Absolutely. Thank you. If there's no discussion, Commissioner Sieg made a motion for approval of zoning docket 8921, seconded by Commissioner Brown. And if there's no discussion, I'll call the question.
No, I
Commissioner
agree.
Alexander?
I just want to agree. This is nice to see someone moving out of rental space and developing a property. So I think this is exactly the kind of thing we'd like to see. And I agree with Commissioner Stieg. Done well and well received. So we don't get to see this a lot. Positive investment with positive neighborhood reception. So I just love noticing when it happens.
Thank you, Commissioner Weidberg. I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Witry?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next up is zoning docket 9021.
We have one public comment from Rachel Heiligman, 20 Warbler Street in support. As a very close neighbor and regular customer of the Bird's Nest Cafe, I encourage the City Planning Commission to issue this request for a conditional use to permit the retail sale of packaged alcoholic beverages. Granting this conditional use will allow neighbors throughout Lake Vista to access expanded retail options without having to get in a car. Courtney and Durley and the Bird's Nest Cafe are wonderful neighbors and will be responsible stewards of a retail packaged liquor sales.
Thank you. Is there a motion or any questions? This zoning docket is staff recommended approval subject to 2 provisos.
Commissioner Brown will move approval. This again is an exciting, I think, development for the neighborhood. The neighbors seem to be very much in favor, and I move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Witry will second.
Thank you, Commissioner Witry. Commissioner Brown made a motion for approval of zoning docket 9021, seconded by Commissioner Witry. Are there any comments or discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Witry?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next up is zoning docket 9121.
Right, we have a number of comments. First one from Matthew Dick, 863 Camp Street, in support. As a tax-paying property owner of a building located in the 800 block of Camp Street for over a decade, as well as a resident for most of that time, my wife and I are in overwhelmingly strong support of the proposed development in its entirety. The improvements to security, lighting, cleanliness, and aesthetics and quality of life to this Camp Street artery corridor is long overdue. Please accept this comment as a ringing endorsement. I am hopeful the Planning Commission, the ARC, and the HDLC and the council will allow this development to proceed as proposed. I have spoken to many of my neighbors with vested interest in the impacted area, and we were all very like-minded. Thank you and look forward to seeing the progress. Matt Dick. Next, from Wayne to Cody, 208 Mandeville Street, in support. I'm writing as the property owner of 834 Camp Street, directly across the street from the proposed hotel, to offer the strongest possible support for the redevelopment of the surface parking lots and vacant structure. This project will add life into an otherwise desolate portion of the warehouse district. As the property owner directly across the street, I fully and enthusiastically support the use as a hotel and the height variance to provide a neighborhood amenity in the form of a rooftop restaurant. This project is a win-win for the neighborhood. The project provides parking for the corporate headquarters of the Advocate, which brings hundreds of good jobs to the neighborhood. It is only fair to provide them with the parking needed for their use, and it provides the neighborhood a rooftop experience that we can patronize along with the hotel. I fully and unequivocally support this request for a conditional use and urge the Planning Commission to approve this use along with the requested height variance. Next, from Ashley Rice, 521 Rendon Street, South Rendon Street, in support. I'm in full support of this project as it will provide much needed revitalization to an otherwise shady and desolate area of that block. Next, from Alan McDonald, 841 Camp Street, in support. A garage is much needed in this location. A mixed-use development is optimal use of the property. The additional 10-foot is required for a proper development that obstructs nothing in close proximity. Next, from Cassandra Sharp, 610 Julia, in support of the application. Since October of 1993, when I purchased my property at 610 Julia, I have longed for a developer to purchase 823 to 843 Camp and develop this area in Square 181. At present, the 800 block of Camp is dark and isolated. Parking is badly needed for neighbors, visitors, and one of the largest nonprofits in the area, the World War II Museum, is in desperate need of parking. The extra height that is needed to complete the project is not a problem for me, and I have a direct straight line of vision to the project out of the rear of my third floor story. Setbacks in relation to extra height will ensure that there will be no impact on Camp Street visually and will add to the rooftop experience. My family just visited New Orleans last week and they searched high and low for a rooftop experience in our Julia Street area. Please grant the developer the conditional use he needs to complete this development for the good of our neighborhood, and send this to the council with the support of the City Planning Commission and the support of the Board of Zoning Adjustments. Cassandra Sharp. Next, from Kathleen St. Germain, 861 Camp Street, in support. Many of us living in this area have invested many hundreds of thousands of dollars in improving our homes despite the burden of the ongoing effort to keep this area clean, safe, and worthy of the investment we have made. Mr. Kenny Lobel has offered us a positive, appealing, wonderfully attractive opportunity to move this area forward to warrant the time, effort, and money that we have invested. We know of no one financially invested in this area that is anything but elated over the opportunity Kenny is offering us and the city, especially to improve the attraction and safety of this area of Camp Street. The height variance is acceptable to all of us who are invested and who will be the primary stakeholders in this new opportunity to modernize and lift the mood and desirability of our neighborhood. We are fine with the recessed 6th level and Mr. Lobel's promise to respond to any concerns in this regard and any other concerns post-construction. Kenny has made an extraordinary effort in community outreach and in responding to any questions we have had. We also welcome the opportunity to offer our newspaper, The Advocate, the ability to continue its presence downtown, a presence that is very important to the appearance of success of any healthy downtown city area. We are very excited and look forward to the approval of this project and for the construction to begin. Please approve this project without further delay. Thank you and regards. Next, from Chris Segrist, 628 St. Charles Avenue, in support. As the general manager of Desi Vegas Steakhouse, I believe this development will be beneficial for all in our area. Something like this is badly needed, and especially the parking. I spend upwards of $20,000 a month just on valet for my guests. A rooftop location of a food and beverage outlet, along with more parking, would be a great addition to the neighborhood. Next, from Jeffrey Proctor, 608 Chateau Andelo, in support. This development would bring much needed foot traffic to the area. Additionally, approving an additional 10 feet would provide much needed parking in the area. A rooftop experience would be an excellent addition to the neighborhood. Next, from Reed Nossaman, 3617 General Taylor Street, in support. I am excited to see continued investments in New Orleans and this area specifically. The concept rendering is beautiful and should contribute wonderfully to the street. I am also glad to see there is so much off-street parking as the area needs it. Next, from Tony Montalbano, 115 Morningside Drive, Mandeville, in support. We would like to see more parking in this area of town, and the rooftop restaurant would be a great addition to the area. Next, from Troy Landry, 3721 Palmisano Boulevard, Chalmette, in support. Parking and the rooftop restaurant would be great development in addition to the Camp Street area. Next, from Emily Ryan, 828 St. Charles Avenue, Unit 1, in opposition. As a community, we have dealt with the owner of the Advocate prior to building and after their project was complete. We were ignored and none of our concerns were addressed. Cracks in our homes, venting system added 6 months later that caused nonstop noise pollution. What assurances do we have that the Advocate will pay for the damages caused and respond to our concerns? Thank you. Next, from Alan McDonald, 841 Camp Street, in support. Much needed development for the area. Area needs more parking and lighted space. The additional 10 feet in height will not be noticed. Next, from Francis Hodgnet, 828 St. Charles Avenue, in opposition. Building of this size will overpower surrounding structures. Construction will cause damage to historical buildings. Close proximity to surrounding buildings will prevent the ability to maintain the old existing building. Next, from Jason Zuckerman, 1354 Villeray Street, Mandeville, in support. Parking is badly needed in the area and rooftop experience will be great as there are few restaurants on camp. This location is badly in need of redevelopment. Next, from Pamela Cooper, 828 St. Charles Avenue, Unit 3, in opposition. I'm opposed to this application because there are too many unanswered issues, the least of which is how will the loss of airspace, light, privacy, and our sense of well-being be resolved? We will lose the quiet ambiance surrounding our property. My private patio will share a wall within the proposed project and will obstruct my views and all the light as well as my personal privacy. My patio will become enclosed like an elevator shaft and my plants won't survive. I will lose the views from my windows that face this project. I will no longer feel safe in my environment. Our property values will be greatly affected. If allowed, the construction of this project will cause significant damage to our historical buildings. If approved, the construction of this project will make living here unbearable. Next, from Michael Leggett, 828 St. Charles Avenue, Unit 2, in opposition. I am strongly opposed to the project on 843 Camp Street. I am in a resident next door at 828 St. Charles, 819 Camp Street. We are located within CBD 5, which is a residential area. The report states that this project is located in CBD 7, which is incorrect. The proposed building would be the largest and tallest in the area and would not conform to the buildings in our area. The height of the building is my primary concern. The proposed building will be directly against my courtyard and pool. This 75-foot high structure will block all light until midday. My courtyard and view out of my patio doors will be reduced to the view looking into a cave. Imagine a 70-foot building being built against the wall of your house with constant noise. This is a residential area with much foot traffic. They are proposing 2 large entrances to their building on Camp Street, making foot traffic dangerous in front of the building. The HDLC ARC initially moved to reject this project, but later backed off to defer due to these 2 curb cuts. The developer told them this was non-negotiable. The same landowner did a project next to our building in the past, and he proved not to be a very good neighbor. Structural damage was done to our building, and he cut off all communication. No remedy was offered. If history predicts the future, I do not believe this project will be different. There is a rooftop restaurant bar that will be directly against my bedroom wall. The noise will make it difficult to go to bed before midnight. Once again, this does not align with the residential area. This project will set a new precedent for buildings in this area, changing the aesthetics and residential feel. It will greatly reduce my property value and enjoyment of my property. Please consider these concerns, as this was a project being built next to your own personal property. Next, from Bruce Warner, 828 St. Charles Avenue, Unit 13, in opposition. I'm strongly opposed to this new development. As a resident in the building directly behind the proposed development, this will negatively affect our residential community's quality of life. Their proposed building would not only touch our property line, but would also block all natural light from our shared pool, courtyard, and gym area, as well as creating a safety hazard by not having such a tall structure overlooking our property. Proposed height should also be denied, for it will also block all light to our kitchen and bedroom windows and is completely out of character for our neighborhood. The proposed 3 stories of parking will also create a noise nuisance. Imagine having a multi-level parking structure that will operate 24 hours a day outside your bedroom window. This is not in keeping with the historic nature of our neighborhood. What we thought originally was the repurposing of an existing building into a boutique hotel has now morphed into a new 6-story construction with 3 floors of parking, condos, and rooftop bar and restaurant. This development will also negatively impact the already busy traffic and pedestrian flow down Camp Street. Thank you for your consideration. Next, from William Davis, 2919 Castiglione Street, in support. I believe the proposed development will be a significant improvement to the block. My largest concern is adequate parking, but I understand that this has been thoroughly addressed in the design. As an Orleans Parish taxpayer and frequent patron of the downtown area, I urge the CPC to approve this project. Next, from Cindy Warner, 828 St. Charles Avenue, number 13, in opposition. We are adamantly opposed to this development because of how it will negatively affect our residential building in our historic neighborhood. We live on the top floor of the 3-story building behind the current ground floor parking lot of the Advocate. We have 1 window in our kitchen and 1 in our bedroom, both of which will be completely blocked from getting any natural light if this project is allowed to go forth. The proposed structure will not only completely block the sun to our unit, but will also create an enormous amount of noise from the screeching tires in the multi-level parking garage and the sound of all the mechanical equipment on their roof, which will be positioned at the back of the building, right next to ours. We will also suffer from all the noise generated by the rooftop restaurant and bar, which will basically ensure that we only get to go to bed when their patrons leave at the end of the night or early morning. These are but a few of the many issues that will affect our quality of life in our condo. Our pool area will be devoid of sunshine and privacy, and the security of all of our residents could be compromised, since the balconies of the renters and residents of their proposed condos will only be feet from our property line and basically overlooking our pool and with clear vision into our parking lot. This area already has many public lots, including one directly across the street that we have never seen full. As a native New Orleanian who has moved away 30 years ago from my career, my husband and I purchased this condo in 2017 so that we could retire in our favorite city and enjoy everything NOLA has to offer. This development will definitely put a damper on our future lives and enormously devalue our beautiful historic property. The thing that visitors and residents alike love about this historic city is not that it's full of big, shiny new buildings, so why would we want to lose this charm? Next, from Marguerite Culpepper, 828 St. Charles Avenue, Unit 8, in opposition. I'm opposed to this project as a shared property owner to the back and side of the proposed project on Camp Street. The conditional use for the hotel should be denied as the area is full of large and small hotels. We are CBD 5 historical residential mixed use neighborhood, and Camp Street is a multimodal pedestrian corridor. The requested height variance should also be denied, as it will be the tallest building in the immediate area and will overpower the design and architecture of the CBD 5 area, as well as block our entire residential building bedroom and living quarters windows. This project will also look down on our development's ground floor courtyard and pool and exercise facility for our residents, as it will be all glass with balconies overlooking this area. The request for a rooftop bar restaurant will be the first in our area and bring noise and light into our residences, as well as loud mechanical equipment to our home. We will not go to bed until they close. We live in a neighborhood where people go to work, go to school, and need to sleep. This project does not meet the standards of compatibility with our or preserve the character of our neighborhood. The construction process will disrupt the neighborhood and potentially weaken and damage our historical building. Have we not learned from the recent building collapses? Please deny or at a minimum defer this project until further questions can be answered. Next, from Kevin Ryan, 828 St. Charles Avenue, Unit 1, in opposition. I am adamantly opposed to this project for numerous reasons. Firstly, the project will negatively affect our historically significant building from the construction impacting the integrity of our structures and losing significant views. So to significant negative noise impacts to restricting light in many locations. There are also the broader negative implications for our community as a whole. The additional traffic this project will add to our already congested Camp Street corridor will be tremendous. There'll be many more cars coming and going, which will also negatively affect the high pedestrian traffic we have from our visitors to the many museums and galleries along this corridor. I really see no benefit to our community as a whole from this project. Lastly, the proposed facade is not in keeping with the historical integrity of the surrounding buildings. Next, from Kirk Faubacher, 1050 South North Norman C. Francis Parkway, in support. Regarding the height variance, the bulk of the 6th floor is located on the Ozanam inside of the building as to diminish its impact along Camp Street, 25-foot setback, Julia Street, 30-foot setback, and at the rear of the property, St. Charles, a 44-foot setback for much of its length. We have met with the adjoining property owners and will continue to meet with them to ease the development's impact. Next, from Sharonda Williams, 1615 Poydras Street, resident at 828 St. Charles Avenue, in opposition. The proposed development will severely and detrimentally impact the availability of light, air, and the general accessibility to the residents' own property at 828 St. Charles Avenue. The proposed development will directly abut several residences of 828 St. Charles, blocking their views, essentially obliterating any light in key living spaces and generating additional car and commercial noise that will directly affect the residents' living areas and bedrooms. The residents have discussed these issues as well as others, including the traffic impacts posed by the proposed parking spaces and the effects that such close construction will have on the structural integrity of the building at 828 St. Charles Avenue with the applicant's legal counsel and architect. The applicant seems amenable and has indicated a willingness to engage in further discussions with the residents to attempt to address these concerns, which the residents greatly appreciate. The residents request that the commissioners deny or at a minimum defer this matter to allow not only these discussions to occur, but also allow matters pending before the ARC to be fully addressed. Next, from Stacy Fuchs, 725 Rosa Avenue, Metairie, in support. I fully support this project. This area of the warehouse district is terrifying at all hours of the day and night and is in immediate need of new development. A hotel and restaurant is exactly what this neighborhood needs to breathe new life into it. Next, from Ron King, 1436 Avenue des Marquis, Covington, in support. I believe this hotel project will improve the neighborhood by renovation of a vacant building. The hotel will provide jobs for the area. Next, from Bovsep to Cassian, 628 St. Charles Avenue, in support. It would be nice to have something on camp that is lit up because I normally park on Julia because of Sophia opening there. There's never any places to park. Next, from Vanessa Dick, 863 Camp Street, in support. My husband and I own a townhouse on Camp Street, and we are in total support of this current proposed project in its entirety. We have lived there for a decade, and we are looking forward to the added security and lighting and beautification of our neighborhood. Tens of thousands of cars drive through here daily, and this area needs to be revamped and rejuvenated. Thank you for your consideration. Next, from Bruce Culpepper, 828 St. Charles Avenue, in opposition. This project does not meet the requirements of the CBD 5 zone, therefore it should be denied. The height variance requested would be detrimental to other property owners in the neighborhood by blocking windows, natural light, and air into our development due to the proposed 3 to 5 story solid wall in place of what is now a clear view to the river bridge. This proposed project will negatively impact resale value of those properties whose kitchen and bedroom windows will be directly blocked by the new construction, plus the noise and air pollution brought by a high-density parking deck. The construction process of this project will disrupt the neighborhood as well as potentially damage the historic building that shares a property line on 2 sides of this project. Next, from Claire Dick, 863 Camp Street, in support. I maintain a room in my son's house at 863 Camp Street. I have visited this area several times per year over the last 10 years. During that time, I have seen tremendous and beneficial growth in the area. This project can only enhance Camp Street. Next, from Bud DeCoste, 425 Notre Dame Street, representing the 425 Notre Dame Condo Owners Association. In opposition, we are of the opinion that the height variance being requested is detrimental to the look and feel of our residential neighborhood. We respectfully request the commission not support this variance. Next, from Christian Briere, 7729 Belfast Street, New Orleans, the Domain Company, in support. I am in full support of this project because it is indicative of what the city and its residents have been looking for in terms of commercial development downtown. This project will bring a much needed.
Sorry, I think that's for the next zoning docket.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That was the last comment.
Thank you. Mr. Sherman.
Yeah, Mike Sherman, Ada Barone on behalf of the applicant. Thank you for the opportunity to respond. I'm really heartened to see the near neighbors and property owners and residents on the Camp Street side express support today, which is what we felt during our NPP process. Just this morning, we had an in-person meeting with our neighbors to the rear who are in the St. Charles Avenue facing building, with the rear of that building facing this site. Let me tackle the 3 issues I heard. First is the need for parking. We are lucky to have a great neighbor who is one of the property owners in the Advocate, who has a corporate headquarters relocation. They need parking. That is their need. Parking is a principal use in the CBD 5 district. And our request for 3 floors of parking relates to the fact that the Advocate needs 2 floors of parking as a principal use. One note, we are in CBD 5. I think I looked at the staff report. I do believe staff correctly has us in the CBD 5. I'm not sure where folks may have noticed CBD 7, but this is clearly a CBD 5 district. With respect to construction techniques, we can assure you piles will not be driven, but vibrated into the ground. It's a strict liability activity. We can do, but we will do everything to protect the adjacent structures from offering video camera inspections prior to construction and ensuring construction working hours and construction methods that are appropriate for a historic neighborhood like this part of the CBD 5. And we've got a quality team and contractor experienced with historic restoration and working within the New Orleans Central Business District. Right now, the team is working on the 710 Barone project, which is very similar in proximity. I want to spend most of my time on the really big issue, okay? Which is the opposition from our neighbors to the rear. There are 3 units in that building that each have 2 other multiple windows that face this site. And the pool for this building faces this site. Because there has been a ground level surface parking lot, and by the way, surface parking is anathema to the master plan. It's against what the CZO calls for in the Central Business District zoning districts. But because that surface parking lot is there, folks have been able to enjoy additional view corridors that would not have existed had there been a structure there. In fact, I think all of their concerns and complaints are very understandable, and it really hit home to me today when walking through that building. And we do look forward to working through potential resolutions that would have to go back to the HDLC with respect to massing. And we'll work with the neighbors council and the neighbors individually, with our architect who was there with me today, my colleague Becca Hurst. So we're going to work with the neighbors to try to find possible resolutions. That is not a zoning issue, nor is that an issue before the City Planning Commission today. because this site is entitled to 65 feet of height without the variance in 5 stories. We have requested an additional 10 feet for a setback rooftop experience. That remains our request. Staff has recommended against that. So we're back to a staff report that recommends only a massing that is allowed by right in the Central Business District 5 zoning district. So we have a combination of a principal use that's permitted and separate principal use that's permitted, a hotel that's a conditional use, which is appropriate for this neighborhood with the checkpoints that have been put in place through the provisos. But I want to acknowledge that the key issue brought up by the neighbors, while it's fully understandable, is not a zoning issue that can be objected. Having a right to a surface parking lot adjacent to you is not a right, a property right that folks have. Now, again, want to be clear, we are going to work with our neighbors, and anything that we discuss will have to go back before the HDLC, but not before the City Planning Commission, because it's not a zoning issue, those light and view corridors over a surface parking lot that has incumbent development rights.
Mr. Sherman, you're about at time.
Okay. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or the staff or a motion?
Commissioner Lunn, I have a question, Mr. Sherman. I think I understood you to say before in the initial presentation that the maximum parking limit that was expressed in the staff report is inapplicable. Did I understand that correctly? And if so, why was that?
Yeah, so staff evaluated a potential proviso for maximum parking as if all of the parking was an ancillary use, and applied minimum and maximum parking as an ancillary use. 2 of our 3 stories of parking, and this was in our NPP report and in our presentation to the community, 2 of those 3 stories of parking are parking as a principal use. And parking as a principal use is a permitted use in the CBD 5 district.
Okay, then so I'd like to address a question to staff then, anyone who could assist with this. Just could you respond to that? Because your recommendation is to limit the parking in order to allow for the increase in height, the request for increase in height.
Yeah, I can respond to that initially. So the staff's perspective is based on various provisions on the CZO that don't contemplate as much parking on the site in the CBD as is proposed. One is based on the multimodal pedestrian corridor, which really envisions a more active and multimodal street usage, inclusive of pedestrian, cyclists, and transit. And so based on those rules, that kind of limits parking area access, such as garage doors, curb cuts, driveways, etc. That's also similar to what's found in Article 22, which these streets are kind of prohibited from the curb cuts. And so the Department of Safety and Permits has allowed the applicant the ability to retain existing curb cuts and kind of modify them and move them on site as is necessary. And so the second and third reason is that since the applicant kind of has a, if you will, a blank slate site that has a lot of new construction, and that is developing the site over that significant renovation threshold, the staff's perspective is that there's no inherent kind of conditions to the site that would allow us as staff to say that the variance request is justified, right? And so those are the kind of reasons we recommended the parking variances, or sorry, the parking limitations as is required. And so it was not reviewed, as the applicant is correct in saying that it was a principal parking lot. And so I believe and I believe there are use standards associated with that. And so in this case, I'll defer to my other staff members, but if that's kind of the case, we would also recommend principal parking lot standards, either in conjunction with the parking limitations as to meet the variance request and the multimodal standards, and or if either way, principal parking lot standards principal parking structure use standards may apply. I'll defer to the rest.
Okay. Anyone else who could help address that?
Yeah, I mean, so the aspects of this that are permitted by right are the buildable envelope up to the height limit. There is accessory parking for the hotel and the multifamily components that are permitted up by right up to certain caps. And then principal parking structure is also a permitted use. And so, yeah, Mike is correct that proviso that limits parking is intended to apply only to the accessory parking, not to the principal use parking. And so we're happy to add language there that clarifies that. And I hope that answers the question.
Okay, so just so that I understand that, would that mean then that the amount of parking they have in their design and in their application is accepted?
Yeah, so any number of spaces is allowable. It's just how the space is divided up. The space that is considered accessory to the development is limited, but everything above that, and it's hard to answer this question because it's kind of making artificial distinctions between parking. That kind of is one can of worms in real life. But they can have a certain amount of accessory parking by right, and then they can have any number of principal parking spaces by right. So it's really, there's an ability to have as many spaces as will fit within the buildable envelope of the structure.
Okay, okay. Thank you. And one other question that I have is, can you hear me? I hear an echo. Am I audible? Yes. Okay.
I can hear you.
One of the public comments was requesting deferral based on issues pending before the ARC. And could anyone answer what that is, whether it's the applicant or staff? What are the issues that are pending before ARC?
The ARC is the Architecture Review Committee of the HDLC. I do the HDLC meetings, but I don't do the ARC meetings, so I'm not privy to what exactly is pending before the ARC now. The applicant can probably answer that.
I'm going to just double check with our architect as we're speaking right now. I believe we have massing approval, but are waiting a final approval on details and the facade. But I'm waiting for a confirmation from our architect right now to make sure I've said that correctly.
Okay.
When things go to the HDLC, they get an initial massing approval, which is kind of the white box of it, and then the details, the fenestration, the brick or stucco, the window placement, those kind of things kind of go through the second approval. So that's what's probably pending right now.
Okay, and that's really frequently the case with us, right? That we are addressing the conditional use permit while that is still has some pending issues.
And our architect has confirmed we have a massing approval as to the building pending, and what would be next is working through the details of the facade and the material selection, the windows, the lighting.
Right. So we don't advise applicants on which one to go to first. It's kind of a chicken or an egg situation. So HDLC is within the bounds of zoning of what they can approve and not approve, but what they're reviewing is more architecture as opposed to what we're here to discuss today.
Okay. All right, and then could I just please have a repeat of what is the staff's recommendation on this application?
Staff's recommendation is approval subject to 25 provisos.
Okay.
But can I follow up on Commissioner Lund's question? So among the 25 provisos is not granting the extra 10 feet, is that correct? So, a vote?
Yeah, so the
A vote?
first proviso reiterates the base zoning district standard of height limit of 65 feet and 5 stories.
Okay. And then, and among the provisos is not allowing the extra parking, some that's of right as a principal use, but then not allowing the extra beyond that, other than what is there of right. Is that correct?
That's correct. The proviso was based on the minimum required for each of the collective of each of the respective uses.
Hey, Joseph, can you repeat that again?
Yes.
So
Joseph, hold on a second. Let me clarify what the parking proviso should say. Proviso 21, which speaks to the parking count, limits the accessory parking spaces. If there is to be non-accessory garage parking spaces, which is permitted by right, that is not subject to that limitation. So, and we need to clarify that in the language, but it's not, there's no intent to prohibit them from providing non-accessory parking spaces that are allowed by right.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
One more, Commissioner Lund, that the comment was made in the report that this meets the threshold to include affordable housing. Just wanted to ask how many units will be provided that are affordable housing. Did I misunderstand that? That would be for the applicant.
Yeah, Mr. Sherman.
This is a hotel development. The definition of hotel allows for the inclusion of for sale units. So a unit can be individually owned within the hotel and used as a residence or placed back in the hotel pool. The proviso reads that we shall comply with article, I want to be specific here. We shall comply with the article in the CZO relative to MIZ. At this moment, MIZ is only applicable to rental product, not for sale product. So what the proviso in essence is a placeholder for compliance with an article of the CZO that is not yet operative with rules and regs and applicability standards, to my understanding. So it is a compliance with the law proviso, and the law is not yet written or active relative to developments like this.
Okay, but you're confident that you'll be able to comply?
Yeah, I was caught by surprise by that. I mean, the law is the law, whether or not it's a proviso, it is the law. And this is a hotel with for sale individual units. So this is not something where we made a proposal and the proposal is being modified through a proviso. It was what appears to be, like many provisos, a recitation of laws that may be applicable to a development. So the short answer is we will comply with whatever the law is. We did not make a proposal for affordable housing in this hotel development.
Right, and so the staff can offer that when we analyzed the report, it was seen as the hotel in the existing structure and all the residents, new multifamily uses in the new structure, kind of independent of each other. And so as the applicant is elaborating today, there seems to be a lot more collusion between the two uses. And so we can revise the account, or, as we go through this process, the staff can kind of revise what is independent multifamily use versus what units are actually, for lack of a better word, dependent on the hotel use. So that affects the trigger because as reviewed in the report, there were 12 multifamily units, and the MIZ trigger threshold is 10 units. And so if for example, they have 2 floors, so let's say 6 units are multifamily and 6 units are for the hotel, then frankly, they wouldn't trigger the MIZ. And at that point, the proviso would simply just be non-applicable. But in the case that they do provide, let's say 10 units, then the proviso would be applicable.
Okay, are there any other questions, comments, or a motion?
This is Stieg. I move approval in accordance with staff recommendations.
Witchery will second.
Thank you. Commissioner Stieg made a motion for approval of zoning docket 9121 with a second by Commissioner Witchery. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lund.
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg.
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart.
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Witchery.
Yes.
Motion passes. Commissioner Witchery will take over for zoning docket 9221. Commissioner Flick will recuse herself.
Zoning docket 9221. Are there any comments, Paul?
We have one public comment from Christian
read.
Briere, 7729 Belfast Street, in support. I'm in full support of this project because it is indicative of what the city and its residents have been looking for in terms of commercial development downtown. This project will bring a much needed and much desired activation downtown and create a food and beverage destination for the people of New Orleans to enjoy and be proud of. Additionally, per the staff report, this project is in line with the city's goals for the district and greater market. This is a great use, an exceptional developer, and a welcome addition to the neighborhood and the local business community. That's the last comment.
Thank you, Paul. Commissioners, do you have any questions or a motion?
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second by Brown.
So Commissioner Weidberg moved to approve staff recommendation for approval with 8 provisos of zoning docket 92-21, and Commissioner Brown second. I'll call Commissioner Alexander.
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart.
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg.
Yes.
Commissioner Lund.
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg.
Yes.
I think I'm the last one. Commissioner Witchery. Yes. The motion carries. Thank you all so much. We'll move on to zoning docket 093-21. Commissioner Flick, are you back?
I am. Thank you. I think there are no more comments. Is that right, Paul?
That's correct.
So zoning docket 9321 is recommended for approval, subject to 2 provisos.
All right, Madam Chair.
This was the parking lot. Sorry.
Yes. This is the curb cut. There's no further discussion on
That's
zoning
right.
docket 21. I move for approval with the 2 provisos.
Thank you. Commissioner Stewart, is there a second?
Commissioner Lund, I'll second Commissioner Stewart's motion.
Commissioner Stewart made a motion for approval of zoning docket 9321, seconded by Commissioner Lund. If there's no discussion, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lund.
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley.
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg.
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart.
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Witchery.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
The next zoning docket is 9421.
No public comments.
Okay, staff recommendation is for denial. This is the used car lot. Are there any questions or discussion or a motion?
I had one question, which is, can staff let us know if the rezoning were granted, what are the other permitted uses under that zoning classification? In other words, if the used car lot were to fail and someone else were to buy it, what would be the other uses that would be permitted by right?
I'll be happy to answer that. I'm going to have to pull up the CZO so I can read off the entire list, or as many of them as you want to hear.
Yeah, or a representative sample. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Hold on. All right, in the C3 district, the commercial uses that are permitted by right, indoor and outdoor amusement facilities, art studio, broadcast studio, animal hospital, car wash, bus terminal, catering kitchen, a drive-through facility like a bank or whatever. Let's see. Funeral home, bank, greenhouse, hotel, motel, live performance venue by conditional use, motor vehicle dealership by conditional use. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Live performance venue by right. Let's see what else.
Good. Yeah, I'm only interested in the ones in the permitted uses, not the conditionals.
Okay. To continue on then with the C3, let's permitted only government offices, social club or lodge, place of worship, a vocational school, a high school, an elementary school, cultural facility, community center, convent or monastery. That's a distillery. Brewery.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Commissioner Alexander. I have a question for staff.
Okay.
The applicant's representative mentioned that at some point in the past, the applicant had a used car lot adjacent to this particular lot. Can you explain why it was allowed then but not allowed now?
Off the top of my head, I cannot. The representative, if she mentioned when that was, that got past me. You may want to put that to her. But if it was prior to this zoning ordinance being adopted in 2015, it may have been a permitted use at that time.
Yeah, I mean, that's most likely the case. This had an industrial zoning before 2015, and that's all of this side of Chef. So, you know, there were a lot of things that were allowed prior to 2015 that aren't allowed today, and car dealerships are among those.
The applicant's representative had also mentioned something about being grandfathered in. How does that factor in?
Stephen, you want to take this because I'm not
So,
aware.
yeah. So if there's a grandfathering, the grandfathering exists for the site that already has that property right. And so, you know, if the property is a car dealership in 2015, the zoning changes to no longer allow car dealerships, that particular property can retain the car dealership use as long as it doesn't shut down. What can't happen is it can't expand and it can't change to a different location. If you're doing that, you're losing the grandfathering. And so the options are to either not do it at the new location or to seek a zoning change that would allow this as a permitted use at that location.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lund, I have a question. Is the applicant's representative present? Could answer?
Ms. Green, are you available?
Yes, ma'am. Hi. So could you go through for me? So my understanding is this parcel is 1.6 acres east of St. Mary's, and that was this parcel recently purchased and the same owner currently operates a similar car repair, auto repair on an adjacent parcel and just purchased this parcel with the intent of having sales?
Well, what happened, well, he purchased the property back in 2016. So he purchased the new property to expand to sell, but see the zoning change happened without knowledge to him, because otherwise he never would have purchased this new property. But he purchased his property back in 2016, unbeknownst to him that the zoning was going to be changed. And I think 2017 is when the zoning was changed. So he's no longer at the property where he was for 20 plus years selling used cars. In 2016, he went ahead and purchased the new property to expand and sell new cars, but not until, I think the zoning changed back in 2017. And that's when he could have been grandfathered in at the other location. Am I clear on that?
Well, the new zoning ordinance took effect in 2015.
Okay, well, so 2015. And I think when he finalized, because he actually left the owner, but I think when he finalized the purchase of it, he didn't know that the place right next door to it was not going to allow used car sales.
Okay. So currently he has a motor vehicle repair location that was grandfathered in.
No, that was not grandfathered in. The original location was grandfathered in at that time, but he bought a larger property to expand.
Okay.
But even as 2020 was he has an occupational license for that 7334, but he's no longer using that because he wanted to sell used cars in the new property next door to it.
A clarifying question for staff. The repair shop is permitted under the current zoning and so wouldn't require being grandfathered in. It's still allowed, yes?
I believe so. Let me.
Is it a legal non-conforming use?
One moment.
Yeah, so there's a conditional use from 2017 that allows the repair shop. So that is an entitlement that exists and will exist.
Thank you.
Yeah, motor vehicle service and repair is a conditional use in the C1 district.
Are there any other questions or comments or a motion?
This is Commissioner Mobley. I'm going to motion against staff recommendation to approve. And that's something that I take very seriously doing. As I look at the proximate businesses along this stretch of Chef Mentor, there are 4 trailer parks. There's a self-storage, there's a body shop, there's a Family Dollar, there's an Advanced Auto Parts, there's 2 tire shops. This business is within keeping of what is already happening in this area. And when we talk about investing and growing businesses in New Orleans East and the desperate need for economic development, we can best do that by supporting the expansion of existing successful businesses and keeping our small entrepreneurs in business. So I think that merits overriding the zoning change that was made in 2015 and allowing this to go through.
Thank you, Commissioner Mobley. Is that your motion? Yes. Is there a second?
It's Commissioner Lunn, and I will second the motion for the very same reasons.
Thank you. Commissioner Mobley has made a motion to approve zoning docket 9421, seconded by Commissioner Lunn. Is there any discussion?
Just because I'm gonna vote with the motion as well, and because we are doing it against staff. So I want to state reasons, and it's exactly what Commissioner Mobley and Commissioner Lund echoed just now. So I support it and vote for it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
If I can, this is Commissioner Stieg. I'm going to support the motion as well, but for a slightly different reason in addition to the ones that were stated, which is with zoning changes, I'm always concerned. We have a very sympathetic use presented to us here. And I think everybody would want to see this business expand. The danger is in rezoning that if that business fails and there are other more noxious uses that could come replace it that wouldn't be appropriate to the neighborhood. But the list, and that's a very real concern that we, as Commissioner Stewart and I often say, zoning changes are forever. But in this, that's why I asked them to read off the permitted uses. And I didn't hear anything noxious in those permitted uses that would be unfair to the remaining neighbors or the surrounding community. So there doesn't seem to be that danger that we try to protect against. So I'm in favor of the motion as well.
Yeah, Commissioner Stieg, thank you for asking them to read those off. I'm going to support the motion made by Commissioner Mobley. Whether or not they're noxious, I think, depends on ownership and often is the case that there can be challenges from things that are completely reasonable in terms of the zoning. I think what that was read for us is consistent with what is on that strip, and so because of that, I too am going to support the motion.
Commissioner Alexander here. I just want to go on record to say that I too will support the motion for all of the reasons stated by my fellow commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Alexander. On that note, if there's no other discussion, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley?
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Weidberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Wittry?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Best of luck.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Next up is zoning docket 9521, and there are no public comments, correct?
Public comments. This is the text amendment concerning classic signs, Two Jacks Restaurant.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead. Modified approval.
I'm going to make a motion to approve with modified approval zoning docket 095-21.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Wittry made a motion for approval for modified approval of zoning docket 9521, seconded by Commissioner Brown. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley?
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wittry?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next up is subdivision docket 135-21.
And
No public comments.
can you mark me as recused, Madam Chair, please?
So noted. Thank you, Commissioner Stieg. This is the re-subdivision of the three one lot into three. And this is for tentative approval, 3 waivers and 3 provisos.
Commissioner Brown will move approval.
Wittry will second.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown made a motion for tentative approval for subdivision docket 135-21, seconded by Commissioner Wittry. If there's no question or no comment, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wittry?
Yes.
Motion passes with 7 yeas and 1 recusal. And then last up is zoning docket 142, subdivision docket 142-21.
No public comments.
And this is set for tentative approval, subject to 4 provisos.
Commissioner Witry will make a motion for tentative approval, subject to 4 provisos on zoning docket 142-21.
Commissioner Lund will second.
Thank you. Commissioner Witcher made a motion for tentative approval for subdivision docket 142-21, seconded by Commissioner Lund. If there's no discussion, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Sieg,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Yes, motion passes. And that is it for today. Oh, wait, we have to do the deferral.
Commissioner
Deferral.
Lund? Okay, I'll go ahead. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
All right, I move for deferral of zoning dockets 9621 through 10121 to the November 30th City Planning Commission meeting and deferral of the subdivision updates for an indefinite period.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Witry will second.
Thank you. Commissioner Lund made a motion for deferral for zoning dockets 9621 through 10121 until the November 30th meeting, and deferral of the subdivision regulations indefinitely. If there's no, Commissioner Witry seconded, and if there's no question, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Sieg, thumbs up, yes.
There we go. Yes. I didn't have a hand on the keyboard. Sorry.
Commissioner Stewart
Yes.
and Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Motion passes. Now we're done. And we will reconvene on the 30th.
We have
We have-
2 other items.
Conflict.
What?
We have
I'm
2
sorry,
more
go-
items.
We do?
We do? We have the
Yeah, so
subdivision
item
regulation.
24 is
Go ahead.
Yeah, so item 24 is subdivisions that need to be ratified for administrative approval. And so there's a list of those. And then the final item is 25 is the 2022 meeting schedule, which is the normal meeting schedule, meetings on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of each month.
I wanted to the schedule. The city council announced the city holiday schedule for next year. Can y'all hear me? Sorry, I don't have
We're
it.
good.
And
Okay.
November 8th is a city holiday, and that's when the November meeting is scheduled for. So I don't know if we want to consider a different date for the November meeting because the staff will be off that day.
That's a year from tomorrow? I mean, a year from yesterday?
Yes, it's election day. They're giving us election day off.
So can we
Okay,
make
so
a
we're-
motion to, oh, go ahead.
Stephen's on
Go
mute.
ahead.
I was going to make a motion to do, I mean, the 15th of November.
I think Stephen needed to say something.
Stephen.
Yeah, I was going to suggest the 15th as a good alternate date for us.
And so, Misty, do we need to make a motion to say we want to change the date until the 15th? Is
So
that
what
has to happen?
you can do, well, first we need to take up the ratification of the subdivision.
Notifications? Sure.
And then we'll do the meeting schedule. We can just say, I approve the meeting schedule with the one change that we're going to have the November meeting on the 15th.
Yep. Great. Looking for a motion for the ratification of the certified subdivisions.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Is there a second?
I'll second Commissioner Lund.
Thank you, Commissioner Lund. I'll call the question for approval of the ratification certified subdivisions. Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Thank you. And now we're looking for a motion for approval of the 2022 schedule with the November 8th adjustment to November the 15th.
I'll make that motion. We'll approve the 2022, let it be a wonderful year ahead of us, regular meeting schedule, and we're going to make the change. Instead of November 8th meeting, since it will be a city holiday for Election Day, we will meet as a commission, hopefully in person, on November 15th, 2022.
Commissioner Alexander, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Alexander. If there are not any questions or discussion, I will call the question for approval of the 2022 meeting schedule with the November 15th adjustment. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieg?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiedberg? Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Now we're done.
Happy Thanksgiving, I guess. It's
Happy Thanksgiving.
because we'll see you on November 30th.
November 30th. And we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move for that we adjourn for today.
Thank you, Commissioner Lunn. And a second?
I second with a suggestion that everyone send me pie pictures and recipes.
Oh, okay.
Well done. And all in favor? And bye. Thanks, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Stay well, everybody.
Bye.
Happy holidays.